Hi guys, welcome back. How are we doing today? I hope everyone is having a fabulous Friday so far. My name is McCry Stuhlin and welcome to Everything Freaky and Full of Mystery. Here we tell stories under topics of the supernatural, downright shocking, or uncomfortably cringy, while I work on a current project from Native Crow Taxidermy and Oddities LLC. Here are a few places you could find me. Like me, share me, and subscribe to my channel to keep up with new projects and posts weekly. Today, we will be working on this little alligator taxidermy head. I will be dressing it up with some moss and mushrooms in its mouth and decorating it with insects and other pieces of nature. And today's story will fall under the paranormal part of supernatural. So this is a story. It's based on a true story. The names that are used in this story are different from those of the actual people. I hope you guys enjoy this, and let's get into it. There was a nice small family living in rural Indiana who were ready to make a big change in their life. They were moving from a rental property to a new home. It was a mother, a father, and 3 young children. A boy named Zeke and 2 girls, Kayla and Kylie. The kids remember being apart and looking at all the potential homes. There were a few in a small, quiet town named New Richmond that they visited. There were 2 houses that were very memorable to Kayla. One house seemed to have so many secret rooms and cubbies. The yard was big, and in the backyard there was a beautiful weeping willow tree next to a small pond. She remembered it being so gorgeous. She and her 2 siblings ran all around the house, inside and out, exploring and seeing what could be their next home. She fell in love with it and begged her mom for this one to be it. This house was so perfect. She remembered her mom talking to the realtor, but tuned out hearing the actual words spoken. It was like one of those iconic Charlie Brown moments, where the adults just made a wah-wah sound when they talked. The family got all packed up back in their vehicle and cruised down the road to the next house, another located in this cute, quiet town. They pulled into the driveway, and this one seemed so much more exposed. No trees, no flowers, just a big white house sitting right on the road. There was a privacy fence along one side, and nothing but a garage dividing the properties on the other side. Behind the house, the edge of the property line had a cornfield along it, with a small patch of wooded area along the side. The wooded area caught the children's eye, as it looked to be a fun place to play. They got out of the family car and followed the realtor up to the house. Already, the place felt weird and uncomfortable. When they stepped inside, there was a small room they stepped through that was like a sunroom or mud room for sitting to take off your shoes and coats. Then there was another door that actually led into the house. As soon as that door opened, the very first thing Kayla noticed was the most creepy doll she had ever seen. The current owners were still living in the house and still had some of their belongings laying around. This doll was a ventriloquist dummy. It felt like its eyes would follow you through the room. This made Kayla feel like this house was just off. Something wasn't right here, and she didn't like it. She told her mom again that she liked the other house better, but her mom hushed her and reassured her that the doll wasn't going to stay here, and everything was fine. They continued touring the house. There was an upstairs and down, a basement, a nice big garage, and lots of cool things to look at in it. And the yard seemed bigger than the last house. Trying to push the creepy doll out of her mind, Kayla liked a lot of the other parts of the house. It wasn't as amazing as the last house, but it still wasn't too bad either. Her mom seemed to have a big smile on her face as they all started to make their way back outside. As they passed through the living room, Kayla turned to take one last look at that doll. It was the freakiest thing she had ever seen. She couldn't understand why someone would own it. The children weren't part of the decision making, but before they knew it, the family was all packed up and started to move into their new home. The parents had chosen the white house with the creepy doll. As soon as they opened the door to start moving in their belongings, Kayla's eyes shot straight over to where that doll was. It was gone, but somehow the energy of the house still felt weird to her. She pushed it out of her head and continued to help get moved in. As the days passed, everything got settled in. There were 2 rooms upstairs. Zeke got his own, and as always, the 2 girls had to share a room. They hated this, but it was what it was. A few days turned into a few weeks, turned into a few months living in the house. The children started to complain and question hearing weird noises and thinking they were seeing things. There would be tapping sounds or a creak from the floorboards in an area no one was standing. They'd go to their dad and try to tell him what they were hearing, and he would tell them it's a new house and we just haven't gotten used to the noises it makes yet. At first, the kids would find comfort in his explanation, but as more odd things happened, his responses started to annoy them. They wanted real answers, so they started telling their mom about these strange things. Their dad didn't believe in ghosts, but their mom sure did. She was very interested in hearing about what the kids had to say. Without freaking them out more, she just listened and worked her words to make them believe it was just a friendly ghost. Intrigued, she did want to look into the history of the house and see what secrets it held. The kids carried on day by day, playing games together, staying up late and watching movies together, and taking turns using the only bathroom in the house to get ready for school. One morning, as the girls were in the bathroom, Zeke was sitting at the dining room table eating a bowl of cereal. To the right of him was the living room, and to the left was the doorway to the kitchen. He sat there alone, shoveling cereal into his mouth, when something caught his attention from the corner of his eye. He turned his head quickly, with panic, and saw the shape of a tall, skinny man. He couldn't make out any features, but he knew it was a man, and with a bellowing cry, he called, "Mom!" His scream was full of blood-curdling fear, and his mother came running quickly, worried something awful had happened. When she ran up to him, he cried and said there was a man pointing towards the kitchen. She ran in, looking in the kitchen, and then in the back room off of the kitchen. There was a door leading to the backyard in that room, and her first thought was someone had broken in. But there was no one. The door was locked, and the house was empty. All three kids were scared and spooked by this. Their mom did everything she could to comfort them before sending them onto the school bus. They usually didn't like going to school, but after this, they wanted to get out of the house. While they were off at school, their mom started some research. She wanted to get some answers, not only for herself, but also for her kids. She had found something interesting and knew exactly what she'd tell them when they got home from school. Usually, after school, the school bus would drop the three kids off at their grandma and grandpa's house on the other end of town. Their grandparents would watch the kids until their parents got off work. It was always so much fun at their grandparents' house. There was always something waiting for them there that just made their day. As they played out in the sand pit under the shade tree in front of the yard, they saw a familiar vehicle pull in the driveway. It was their mom. They looked at each other, sharing the same thought. They didn't want to go back to the house. When their mom said it was time to go, they begged to stay the night. "We never get to stay the night at Grandma's," they cried. But their mom was stern. Rules were rules, and there was no staying the night anywhere on a school night. Upset, they slowly took their time climbing into the back of the car. It was a short 2-minute drive down the road to get home. As soon as they arrived, their mom told them to go and sit in the living room. She had something to talk to them about. They were nervous, all thinking back to, what could I have done wrong? Then she spoke about the friendly ghost again. She said his name was Ivan, and he was a sweet old man who was living there when he passed away. She told them his story and how the townspeople had good things to say about him. He wasn't anything they should fear. Hearing this gave the kids comfort, but the story made their dad laugh. Being superstitious, he thought it all to be a joke. This irritated their mom, but here lately, it seemed like a lot of things their dad did irritated her. After being excused, the kids took off upstairs to their bedroom to play games. The house did feel more peaceful after that. The fear of the ghosts wasn't on anyone's mind for a while. One day, while playing outside, Kayla adventured into the garage. There was still a lot of stuff in there from the previous owners. For some reason, it was never fully cleaned out. While looking at everything, she had found something metallic tucked away behind some shelving. She pulled out this object and realized it was a sign. On it, it read, Ivan. That was the name of the old man. She stared at it, thinking about the ghost, focusing on it until 3 knocks on the garage door broke her attention. She looked over and reached out, responding with 3 knocks. More knocks tapped from the outside, and she smiled. "I hear you out there," she hollered. Then she knocked again. This time, it was quiet. She went running out and around the back of the garage. She crept around the side, trying to be sneaky. She popped out around the corner, fast. "Gotcha!" she exclaimed. But there was no one there. She ran around to the other side. No one. Then she ran around the house, looked in the shed, then back in the garage. No one. She went inside the house, a little confused. Kylie was on the couch with their dad, and Zeke was upstairs in his room. "Were you guys just outside?" Kayla asked. "No, I've been here." She asked her sister, "Were you just outside?" "No, I've been watching TV with Dad." "I swear I was out in the garage and someone was knocking on the door. When I looked, there was no one there. I thought it was one of you guys." Their dad chalked it up to be the wind blowing. What a typical excuse that was. This experience made Kayla feel a little more uneasy about the friendly ghost. No, it didn't hurt her in any way, but she preferred not to have any contact or interactions with the spirit. She just wanted to be left alone. Her brother, on the other hand, became curious. He had seen a few of those TV shows where people hunt ghosts and thought it would be fun to try to speak to it or reach out to it. He pitched the idea to both of his sisters, and being the tomboy Kayla was, she always wanted to do whatever her big brother was doing. Kylie, on the other hand, was a little more reluctant, but tagged along anyway because she didn't want to feel left out. Zeke decided they would try communicating where he had seen the ghost, right in the kitchen doorway. All three of them stood there, and Zeke called out, "If you are here, make a sound. Let us know you are here." They all stood there quietly, hoping to hear any little bump, just to say, "See, there it is." But there was nothing. Then Kayla spoke up. "We know you might be scared, but it's okay. You don't have to be scared. Just make any kind of noise." Nothing again. Having the bored and distracted mind a 7-year-old had, Kayla started to look around at her near surroundings. The trash can sat right next to her, and for some odd reason, an empty chocolate syrup bottle caught her attention. She reached out and placed her hand on it and squeezed as her brother again said, "If you are here, make some noise." Not thinking at all, she released the bottle, and this terrifying sound filled the kids' ears. They all screamed and took off running. The ghost had shown itself in the noise it chose to make. But then, Kayla thought about it for a minute and returned to the trash can. She squeezed the bottle the same way again, and again it made that same noise. It was the sound of the bottle gasping for air through the little bit of syrup it had left in it. She laughed as she looked at her siblings. "That was me. I didn't mean for that to happen. I didn't think it would make that noise." Even though the kids felt better, knowing it wasn't the ghost, they still had enough with the game. That quick adrenaline rush gave them enough excitement for the night. Another few days passed, and there were no memorable encounters. Every time things seemed good, everyone seemed happy. But when there were scary sounds, or the children thought they'd see something out of the corner of their eye, they always told their mom they wanted to move. These feelings of no longer wanting to live there only grew stronger with time. There was one sunny day the kids were playing outside after school, and Zeke turned to Kayla and asked for her to get him a specific thing that was in his room for him. They always did favors for each other around the house. They were brought up to always be a helping hand, so she easily agreed and darted into the house. She ran up the stairs and into his room, scanning for this item with her eyes. There was a dresser by his bed that was just full of clutter. She looked around and finally spotted the small toy he had asked for. It was towards the very back of the dresser, against the wall. She reached for it and accidentally bumped it off the edge. It fell back behind the dresser. "Crap," she said. She was too small and weak to move the dresser out of the way. So she moved around to the side and looked to see where it was. It was in arm's reach. She squeezed her tiny arm between the dresser and the wall. She could feel the toy with just her fingertips. Stretching further, she finally got a hold of the toy. As she was pulling it out, she suddenly got stuck. She couldn't move her hand at all. Her fingers got wedged between the wall and the dresser, and she started to panic. She screamed for her mom and tried frantically to get free. As she was stuck there, all she could think about was the ghost, and it scared her. Then, as quickly as it happened, the pressure was suddenly released. She got her hand free and fell back as her mom reached the top of the stairs. "What's going on?" she said. "I was stuck. My hand got stuck behind the dresser and I couldn't move." Kayla's mom treated it like a silly accident and helped her get the toy her brother wanted. Even though it may have all been an accident, the first thing she thought of was still that ghost. More and more, she started to wonder just how friendly the ghost was. The family had lived in the house for about a year now. During the time in the house, they faced many changes. The kids don't remember many of the arguments or marital problems, but there was enough to lead to a divorce. It was devastating for the children. They cried, not understanding what was happening or why it was happening. Their dad was going to move in to their grandparents' house on the other side of town. Those were his parents. It was different not having him there every day. He was the fun positivity of the household. It was harder to feel comfortable in the house without the family being whole. While their dad didn't believe in ghosts, he still had his way of lightening the fear of it with his whimsy jokes. At first, it was an adjustment not having him around, but in time, the kids started to get used to it. After their parents separated, their mom seemed more happy and free-spirited, and with that came new male friends of hers. They always seemed nice, but being kids with little interest in meeting new adults, they would often just say their highs and go back to playing. Since Kayla liked playing with her brother so much, one day she had asked him if they could play a video game upstairs in his room. He said he'd meet her up there after grabbing a snack, and she bolted up the stairs. She picked a spot on the edge of his bed and patiently waited. She looked around, back at the dresser she had gotten stuck behind just a couple months ago. She thought about how scary it was, and as her eyes scanned every object that was sitting on the dresser, one of them did something strange. Her brother had a little pig-shaped piggy bank that was painted to look like a baseball. As she looked at it, it started to shake. It was a quick back and forth shaking, and of all the things sitting on that dresser, it was the only thing reacting this way. She stared at it, completely wide-eyed and curious. She slowly crept forward towards it, and she started to reach out to touch it. But out of absolutely nowhere, it suddenly stopped. Not slowly, but suddenly. Spooked, she took off back downstairs to tell her brother what happened. "Your piggy bank was shaking. I was sitting on your bed and out of nowhere it started shaking." Together, they both cautiously went back upstairs to the dresser, and she showed him how it moved, how weird it was, and explained that this was the only object that shook. Touching it, they realized it was not unstable in any way. There was no reason for it to have done this. They moved the piggy bank to a different location and told their mom what happened. Again, ending the discussion with "We don't want to live here anymore," and "When can we move?" Their mom actually surprised them with what she said next. She had been seeing a man named Bill who had asked her to move in with them. She thought heavily about it, but hearing her children cry for a change, she felt it was the best move for her family at the time. This time, she told them, "Yes, we will be moving soon. We will be living with Bill." The kids were so excited. No more dealing with this ghost. No more being scared. When they moved into the new home with Bill and his kids, it was like sweet relief. No more weird noises or seeing things out of the corner of their eye. It felt like a normal house with peace and quiet. Never again would they have to worry about Ivan, the ghost, or so they thought. Strangely enough, and as ironic as it was, that was not the last time those kids would live in that house. A few months later, their dad bought it and moved in. They would be visiting that house again very soon. So this is what I have done so far. I put a few mushrooms at the top of the head, a couple different kinds of mushrooms inside the mouth, and a geode with a bed of moss. I do have a little slug that I made, and I think I want to stick him somewhere on this. I just haven't figured out where yet. And I think adding a scorpion in its mouth would look really cool. That's it for today's story. I hope you guys liked it. Be sure to like and subscribe to keep up with new posts weekly, and I hope to see you guys again next week. Thanks. Bye.